Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. Pamela waited until after dinner. The plates were still on the table, the TV off, the silence too heavy to ignore. She folded her hands, glanced at me, then stared at the salt shaker like it had the answers. "Eric," she said, voice low, "I need to be honest with you about something." I leaned back in my chair. "Go ahead." She took a breath that sounded rehearsed. "I like you. I care about you, but—" She hesitated, searching for words. "I'm not in love with you." I didn't flinch. I just nodded once. "Thanks for telling me." Her eyes flicked up, surprised. "That's it? You're not upset? Upset about honesty?" "No," I said. "Do you want to separate?" "No," she said quickly. "No, nothing like that. I still want us to live together. We're good roommates, good partners. I just didn't want to keep pretending I felt something I didn't." I tilted my head. "Are you saying you want a break? Or are you seeing someone else?" Her eyes widened. "No, Eric, nothing like that. I don't feel the romantic side anymore. I thought it was only fair you knew." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "All right, thanks for the clarification." She gave a small, relieved smile. I was so nervous to say it. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought you'd take it harder." I stood up, carried my dish to the sink. "I appreciate the honesty, Pamela." She followed me with her eyes, like she was waiting for a fight that never came. But there wasn't going to be one. She told me where she stood. All I had to do was believe her. That night, I lay awake in the guest room for the first time in years, staring at the ceiling. Her words replayed again and again, flat and simple. "I like you, but I'm not in love with you." And my answer had been just as simple. The next morning I changed my routine. No coffee waiting for her on the counter, no kiss on the way out, no quick text during my commute. Just a nod as I left, like I would to any roommate. At work, I canceled the flower subscription I'd been running for almost 2 years. $12 a week for someone who only liked me was wasted money. I also shut down the streaming accounts tied to my card. By the time I got home, the expense sheet was taped to the fridge. Rent, utilities, groceries, split evenly down the middle. Pamela was standing in the kitchen when I walked in, holding the paper. "What's this?" "Budget," I said. "Makes sense if we're splitting things evenly now." Her forehead creased. "Eric, we're still together. I just said I wasn't in love. That doesn't mean we're roommates." I set my keys down. "That's exactly what it means. You said you like me, not love me. So I'm adjusting." She shook her head. "You're twisting my words." "No," I said calmly. "I'm living by them." That night, I moved my things into the spare room. Desk on one wall, bed against the other. By midnight, it looked less like a guest room and more like my own space. Pamela came in, arms crossed. "So this is how it's going to be?" she asked. I leaned back in the chair. We agreed. You wanted honesty. You have it. I'm not going to act like a husband when you've made it clear you don't see me that way. Her jaw worked, but no words came. She turned and left, closing the door behind her harder than necessary. Over the next couple of days, the changes sank in. No morning texts, no calls to ask what she wanted for dinner, no planning trips or weekends. When she tried to cuddle on the couch, I slid to the armchair. When she suggested a Friday movie night, I said I'd be busy catching up on work. The lines were drawn. She'd asked for no love, and I'd given her exactly that. By Thursday, Pamela started fighting the silence. She made my favorite dish, roast chicken with garlic butter, and set the table for two like nothing had changed. When she slid the plate in front of me, I said, "Thanks. How much was the chicken?" "I'll send you my half." Her fork froze in her hand. "Are you serious right now? You said we're not in love. That means we share the costs." She exhaled sharply. "Eric, couples do nice things for each other without keeping score." I looked at her evenly. "Couples? Yes." Then I started eating. The next evening, she waved 2 concert tickets at me when I came home. "Surprise! Front row." I checked the date. "That's Saturday. I've got plans with my friend Noah." "You'd rather go out with Noah than me?" I shrugged. He didn't tell me he wasn't in love with me. The silence after that one was thick enough to choke on. On Sunday, she tried the direct approach. After dinner, she leaned close on the couch, brushed her hand over my arm. "Eric, Maybe we should stop being so distant. I stood up and gathered the plates. I'm not interested in being intimate with someone who only likes me. The next evening, Alicia stopped by. Pamela must have called her. Over dinner, Alicia tried to ease the tension. Maybe Pamela was just overwhelmed. People's feelings shift, you know? I cut a piece of steak. Would you date a man who told you flat out he wasn't in love with you? Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. She didn't answer. Pamela shot her a glare, but Alicia kept quiet. I leaned back. Exactly. Monday evening, I sat down at the desk in my new room and opened my spreadsheet. 3 months of dinners, weekend trips, and shows. All the "I'll transfer you later" that never happened. By the time I finished tallying, her half came to just over $1,600. I sent the Venmo request with a note, "Roommates split things evenly." 10 minutes later, Pamela stormed into my room. "Eric, what the hell is this?" I swiveled in my chair. "Your half of the things we did. I never pushed before because I thought we were in love. But you said we're not. So now we split." Her face flushed. "Those were dates. Gifts. That's what husbands do." I shook my head. "That's what partners in love do. You made it clear we're not that." She stood there, fists tight at her sides, but had no comeback. 2 days later, she tried a new angle. She had a corporate dinner coming up. Spouses were invited. It was one of those image things. She came to me in the kitchen. "I need you to come with me Friday," she said. "That's a couples event." "I won't pretend." Her voice sharpened. "It's important for my job. People expect us to show up together." "Then tell them the truth. We're not in love. We're just sharing a place." Her mouth opened, closed. For once, no words. The fallout hit her fast. At work, colleagues asked why she came alone. She told me later over dinner that people looked at her differently, like she'd lost something. I only nodded. By Thursday, the apartment felt like a pressure cooker. Pamela walked around restless, trying to act normal, then snapping at small things. She slammed a cabinet when I asked her to add her part of the grocery bill. She sighed loudly when I moved laundry from the dryer. Every action I took was calm, deliberate. She'd drawn the line. All I'd done was believe her. By the weekend, Pamela shifted tactics. She started telling her version of the story to our circle of friends. How I had changed overnight, how I was withdrawing affection, and being controlling with money. My phone buzzed with side messages. "What's going on? Are you two okay?" I didn't argue. I waited. Then I dropped 2 screenshots. The first was the expense sheet, her share of the bills neatly listed. The second was the Venmo request I'd sent. No commentary, no emojis, just facts. Finally, Noah typed, "So she told you she's not in love but still wants the perks of being married? That doesn't add up." People asked, "Did she really say that?" Pamela fired back, "It's not that simple, Noah." But the silence that followed said otherwise. No commentary, no emojis, just facts. Later that night, Pamela confronted me in the living room. "You humiliated me. Now everyone thinks I'm the villain." I closed the book I was reading. I didn't add any commentary. I just showed what you said and what I did. People made up their own minds. Her voice rose. "You're cold, Eric. Ice cold." I kept my tone even. "No, Pamela. I'm consistent. You wanted honesty, and I'm living by it." She stormed off to the bedroom. The door slammed, rattling the frame. But for the first time, I noticed something different. Her story wasn't working anymore. She'd tried to paint me as the villain, but all I'd done was match her words with actions. Friends were starting to see the pattern. The control she thought she had was slipping away, and she knew it. The following week, Pamela's energy swung like a pendulum. On Monday, she went for sweetness. She cooked a 3-course dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and even dressed in that black outfit she knew I liked. Halfway through the meal, she leaned across the table. "Eric, can't we just forget all this tension? We're good together." I set down my fork. "We're good as roommates." "That's what you said you wanted." Her smile faltered. "That's not what I meant." I didn't argue. I just cleared my plate and loaded the dishwasher. By Wednesday, the sweetness was gone. She followed me around the apartment, voice sharp. "You're punishing me. You're making me pay for being honest." I turned to face her. "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just giving what you asked for." She slammed the door to our old bedroom so hard that a picture frame fell from the wall. Friday, she tried bargaining. She sat beside me on the couch, softer now. "Maybe we could go to counseling. Or start fresh. I'll do the work if you just give us another chance." I shook my head. "I don't need therapy to know I deserve a wife who loves me. You made it clear you're not that." Tears welled in her eyes, but I stayed steady. The breaking point came on Sunday. She knocked on my office door, voice brittle. "My car's overdue for service. The mechanic quoted me $1,800. Can you help cover it until next month?" I leaned back in my chair. "That's a partner's responsibility." Her face fell. "So you're just going to watch me struggle?" "I'd suggest a payment plan. Or ask Alicia. Or your parents. But I'm not covering that for a roommate." Her lips trembled. She turned and left without another word. That night, I heard drawers opening, boxes shifting. For the first time, Pamela was packing. Not all of her things, but enough that the air in the apartment felt lighter. The message was clear. She was running out of plays. By Tuesday evening, half of Pamela's clothes were gone from the closet. A few boxes sat stacked near the door, taped but unlabeled. I came home from work to find her sitting at the kitchen table, the same place she'd started all this. She looked tired, eyes rimmed red. "Eric, can we talk one last time?" I sat across from her, hands folded. "Go ahead." She took a shaky breath. "When I said I wasn't in love with you, it wasn't the whole truth. I wanted to see how you'd react. I read this article that said relationships need brutal honesty, that if you tell your partner the worst, they'll fight harder for you. I thought if I said that, you'd step up, be more romantic, prove you really wanted me." I didn't interrupt. I just let her keep going. Her voice cracked. "I didn't think you'd actually pull away. I didn't think you'd stop loving me." I leaned forward, calm. "I didn't stop loving you, Pamela. I stopped acting like your husband after you told me you didn't want me in that role. There's a difference." She swallowed hard. "Is there any chance we can fix this?" I shook my head. "You gambled with our marriage. You tested me instead of talking to me, and you lost." She looked down at her hands, twisting the ring she still wore. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she pushed back her chair and stood. "I'll finish moving out this week," she said quietly. "All right," I replied. She lingered a second, like she wanted me to stop her. I didn't. She walked to her room, closing the door softly this time. I stayed at the table, the same spot where she had once told me she only liked me. Except now, the weight was different. There was no sting, no anger, just clarity. The test was over, and so was the marriage. Pamela moved the rest of her things out by Saturday. Alicia came with her, carrying boxes down the stairs while avoiding my eyes. I held the door open, nothing more. When the last box was gone, the apartment felt wider, brighter, like someone had cut loose a weight. On Sunday, I took control of the space. The spare room became fully mine. Fresh coat of paint, new shelves, my desk in front of the window. I replaced the dull wine glasses she insisted were good enough with ones I actually liked. Small things, but every change reminded me that the place was mine. That week, Noah dragged me to a boxing class. "You've got all this focus now," he said, strapping on gloves. "Might as well use it." By the end of the session, sweat poured off me, but my head felt clearer than it had in months. On Wednesday, my phone buzzed. A message from Pamela. "Maybe when I've figured myself out, we can try again." I stared at it for a moment, then blocked her number. No reply, no drama. Just done. On Friday, I filed the divorce papers. There wasn't much to divide. No kids, no property battles, no drawn-out arguments, just paperwork and signatures. When the court date came, she showed up 15 minutes late and didn't look me in the eye. It was over in less than 10 minutes. I came home that afternoon and sat at the kitchen table. Except now the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. Pamela had wanted a husband's commitment while giving me a roommate's affection. She thought I'd fight harder when she pulled away. Instead, I believed her words and lived by them. That was the difference. The story ended not with shouting or slamming doors. She said she wasn't in love. I nodded. And in the end, that nod was the cleanest answer I ever gave her. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. Claire's note was waiting for me on the kitchen counter. She had set the old side gate key on top of it, the one she always used instead of the front door. The message was short, written in her neat handwriting. I need to be on my own for a while. This isn't working for me anymore. I need freedom. Don't look for me. That was it. No apology, no affection, no promise of return, just instructions and a demand for silence. I went to the bedroom. Her side of the closet had gaps where her best pieces had hung. The navy trench, the boots she wore when she wanted to be noticed, the leather bag she saved up for. She left behind the cardigan from our second anniversary and the framed photo of us by the coast. On the rug, her running shoes sat in the middle, clotted with dried mud. I looked at those shoes longer than I should have. That thoughtless detail said more than her 4 lines. For a moment, I considered calling someone. Her sister maybe, or Marina Velasquez, the friend she leaned on when she wanted to vent about me. But that would be chasing. And her note told me not to chase. Claire made exits. I made decisions. I took a picture of the note with the key, time-stamped it, then slid the original into a folder and labeled it with the date. I photographed the closet, the shoes, and the coffee press. Evidence, not memories. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the neat handwriting one last time. Then I opened my phone contacts and scrolled to the name I had looked up earlier that year, just in case. Silas Corbett, attorney. I didn't press call yet. I just saved his number to favorites. When I closed the folder, the silence in the house shifted. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like the start of a plan. The next morning I called Silas Corbett. His assistant answered first, brisk and efficient, and within minutes I had an appointment scheduled for Monday morning. Silas was known for dismantling cases with precision, the kind of attorney who saw every angle before his opponent took their first step. Exactly the kind of man I wanted on my side. After hanging up, I called the bank. I told them my debit card had been compromised. The representative apologized, froze the joint accounts, and assured me everything would be reviewed in person once I came in. My own private account, the one I'd set up years ago as insurance, remained untouched. That balance wouldn't impress anyone, but it would be enough for me to maneuver. By noon, a locksmith was at the door. I walked him through the house while he changed every lock, front, back, garage, even the side gate Claire favored. I paid in cash and asked for receipts. When he left, I slid them into the same folder with her note. I went back to the bedroom. Half her things were gone, but the layout still felt too familiar. I took photos of the closet, with the old locks laid out on the floor, evidence of the transition. I grabbed a duffel from under the bed and packed a few changes of clothes, my laptop, and hiking boots. I had 2 weeks of unused vacation saved up, and there was a motel by the lake I'd always wanted to disappear to. Claire used to call it dull, the kind of place only someone boring would enjoy. That was fine with me. That evening I checked into the lakeside motel. The clerk didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer any. I lay on the stiff bed, stared at the ceiling fan, and listened to the silence that came from knowing I had already made my move before Claire realized she'd lost control. Monday morning, I shaved, put on a clean suit, and drove back into town. When I pulled into the parking lot of Silas Corbett's office, I wasn't surprised to see her. Claire had always kept our shared tablet logged into my email, and I knew she would have seen the appointment confirmation come through. She was sitting on the concrete planter by the entrance. Her hair was pulled back in a loose knot. Makeup was streaked under her eyes. She looked nothing like the woman who used to post new chapter selfies after every yoga retreat. When she spotted me, she stood up fast, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. "Larry," she said, her voice rough. "We need to talk." "About what?" "My card got declined. At the hotel. Do you know how humiliating that was?" Her voice cracked. "And the joint savings. Frozen?" "I called the bank, and they said it was because of you." I didn't blink. "That's correct. Our financial security had been compromised." She frowned, confused, then angry. "Don't joke about this." I needed that money. I had plans. "I'm sure you did," I said and started walking toward the door. She hurried to keep up. "Okay, maybe I should have talked to you first." "But I just needed space, Larry. That note. It wasn't forever. It was just a break to clear my head. You can't be serious about a lawyer." I stopped, looked at her hand gripping my sleeve until she let go. The note said, "Don't look for me." So I didn't. It didn't say, Wait for me until Monday and make sure my hotel bills are covered." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she seemed to realize I wasn't bluffing. "You can't just divorce me," she whispered. "We're supposed to fix things, go to therapy. You don't just blow up a marriage like this." I turned toward the glass door. "You lit the fuse, Claire. I'm just managing the damage." The last thing I heard as the door closed behind me was her voice, brittle and rising, calling my name like it might still carry weight. A week into the silence, a voicemail from an unfamiliar number shattered the calm. The voice was smooth, rehearsed, the kind of tone that assumed obedience. "Larry, this is Dorian Cade. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Claire is upset and you're not being reasonable. Let's have a man-to-man chat and sort this out. Give me a call." I played it twice, then forwarded the file straight to Silas Corbett with the subject line, "For the record." That evening, the doorbell rang at the house. I checked the video feed from the door camera before opening. Claire stood slightly behind Dorian, who was wearing a tailored jacket and a smile sharp enough to cut. His hand rested casually at the small of her back, like he'd been rehearsing ownership. I cracked the door with the chain still on. "Yes?" "Larry," Dorian said smoothly. "Good. We need to talk." "I'm already talking to my attorney," I replied. "You should advise Claire to do the same." "That attitude is what's making this harder than it needs to be," he said, leaning toward the gap. "She's willing to be reasonable. She can come home, let everyone cool down, and we'll work this out like adults." I looked past him at Claire. Her eyes darted everywhere but mine. "There is no we," I said flatly. Her voice was thin. "Larry, please, he's just trying to help. Let me in so I can get my things." "Your belongings will be handled by the attorneys," I said. "Besides, the locks were changed. You vacated the property, Claire. You no longer have a right to be here." Dorian's smile tightened into something else. He shoved at the door with his palm. "Don't be stupid. This is her home, too. Let us in." I didn't move. "Is that a threat, Dorian?" His eyes flickered, the confidence slipping for just a second. "It's advice." "Good," I said. "I'll add it to the file." I closed the door, the chain rattling once before the lock slid home. On the camera feed, I watched them linger, whispering, then storm off. The house felt heavier that night, but I preferred the weight I controlled over the chaos someone else thought they owned. That night, I powered up the old desktop in the office. Claire hadn't bothered to clear anything. Her browser history told the whole story. Hotel confirmations, rideshare receipts, and dinner reservations stretched back months. There was even a private photo folder synced to the cloud. Careless, arrogant. The real blow was in her hidden messages. I found a chat thread with Dorian Cade, time-stamped the morning she left. "Letter is on the counter. Freedom starts now. Meet you at the hotel in an hour." I sat there, scrolling through months of their conversations. Comments about my routines, jokes about how predictable I was, plans for a new life that clearly didn't include me. The casual cruelty of it was almost clinical. I didn't shout. I didn't slam anything. I methodically saved every screenshot, every file onto a thumb drive I labeled in block letters, leverage. Then I copied everything to an encrypted folder and emailed it to Silas. The folder containing her note sat on the desk beside me. I slid the new evidence inside. Paper trail matched digital trail now. In the morning, I called the property manager. "Claire has permanently vacated," I said. "I have her handwritten note confirming it. I'd like the lease renewed in my name only." I sent over the photo of her note, the key on top, time-stamped. The manager hated complications. Within 2 days, I had a new lease drafted. Just me, no Claire. That evening, my phone buzzed. Claire's number. I let it ring out. A voicemail came through, her voice high and frantic. "The landlord says my name isn't on the lease. He said if I try to go in, he'll call the police. Larry, you can't do this. My name has been on that lease for years." I didn't reply. Word spread faster than I expected. I didn't say a thing to anyone, but I didn't need to. Marina Velasquez, her co-worker, called one afternoon, her voice low, almost apologetic. "Larry, it's all anyone at her office is talking about. Claire and Dorian are showing up everywhere together. People are doing the math. It's awkward." I thanked her, kept my tone even. I didn't need details. Gossip was fuel I didn't require. By then, Dorian's own situation was unraveling. He was married, something Claire either didn't know or pretended not to. His divorce was public, messy, and expensive. The perfect couple image they tried to sell with their fancy dinners and filtered photos looked more like panic than happiness. The financial squeeze hit Claire hardest. With our joint accounts locked, she was entirely dependent on Dorian, and his assets were tied up in litigation. One night, a voicemail from her arrived past midnight. Her words were scattered, tearful. "Remember that trip to Asheville? Remember how happy we were? I don't know how we ended up here. Anyway, I really need half of the $2,900 deposit from the landlord. Can you just transfer it? Please." The next morning, I received an email from her new attorney, cheaper, less polished than her first. It demanded the immediate release of funds. Silas's reply was art. All marital assets remain frozen pending final judgment. Any further communication must be directed through counsel. Attached was a single password-protected PDF, file name, Dorian. Inside, just the first 10 pages of her chat logs. The requests stopped overnight. Meanwhile, the promotions Claire and Dorian had expected at work vanished. HR didn't appreciate the office scandal or the spectacle on social media. Their new reality was smaller apartments, fewer dinners, and the silence of friends stepping back. I stayed quiet, steady, building my file, waiting for the right time to use it. Claire had asked for freedom. She was living it, just not the way she imagined. 6 months after I found Claire's note, the case was called to a settlement. There was no dramatic courtroom showdown, just quiet negotiations across polished tables. Silas Corbett handled everything with surgical calm. He laid it out: Claire's premeditated infidelity, her written abandonment of the marital home, Dorian's late-night attempt at intimidation, all backed by files, screenshots, and recordings. Every word was documented. Every move she made was accounted for. The state allowed for fault-based division under specific circumstances, and Silas used that clause like a scalpel. The result was not an even split. Claire walked away with the clothes, the car her parents had given her, and a small, court-ordered portion of the frozen savings. Nothing else. The house was mine to secure. Because I had already renewed the lease in my name alone, the option to buy clause rolled directly to me. Silas confirmed it with the landlord, and within a month I signed the purchase papers. The down payment came from the private account Claire never knew existed. Claire's face when she realized the house was gone for good was not anger, but something quieter, heavier: resignation. Dorian's own divorce drained him. The apartment they shared was cramped, loud, and nothing like the life of freedom they had advertised. Mutual friends told me the office atmosphere was poisonous, that both were sidelined for promotions they once considered inevitable. Silas shook my hand after the final hearing. "You handled this clean," he said. "No wasted words. No wasted moves." I nodded. Claire made her choices. I just followed the instructions she left. And that was true. The note had said, "Don't look for me. I need freedom." I hadn't looked. I simply let her have it. The divorce was final. The papers filed. Life settled into a quieter rhythm. I didn't think much about Claire anymore, but sometimes endings show up in small places. One Tuesday evening, I got an email from a streaming service. "Your password has been changed." I hadn't changed it. I logged in and found Claire's old profile still attached to the family plan. For months, she'd been listening, tethered to me by something I hadn't even remembered to cut. I removed her profile with 2 clicks, reset the password, and leaned back in the chair. It was nothing, a trivial account, but it felt like locking a door I hadn't known was open. The last thread was gone. I repainted the kitchen a deep iron blue. I hauled out Claire's accent chair and replaced it with a solid bookshelf stacked with volumes I'd been meaning to read for years. The space looked different, sharper, like it belonged to someone who wasn't waiting anymore. Every now and then, late at night, I'd think back to that morning. Me standing in the kitchen, reading her note under the gate key. I can still feel that first stone of grief in my stomach, but I see now what it built. The silence I chose that day became the foundation for everything that followed. Claire and Dorian still circle each other from what I hear, living smaller, bitter lives, blaming everyone but themselves. They'll likely never understand that I didn't go after revenge. I didn't hunt them down. I just stepped aside and let the consequences of their own choices arrive on time. In the end, Claire was right about one thing. She said she needed freedom. She got it, and I got mine. The difference was, I knew what to do with it. Thank you for watching.